Call to order the planning commission regular meeting Wednesday, February 15th, 2023 at 7:00 p.m. We can give roll call, please.
Commissioner Drutt,
Here.
Commissioner Kinsley.
Here.
Commissioner George. Here. Commissioner Hall and Commissioner Pickett are absent.
And approval of tonight's agenda.
I'll move approval of tonight's agenda.
First. Second. Mr. George, you here a second.
I'm sorry.
The approval of the agenda.
I'll second.
The first and second, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And then we have no minutes still. So just on down to new business, this is resuming consideration of the proposed ordinance 309, an ordinance adopting text amendments of the Lowell Development Code and text amendments to Lowell's comprehensive plan, codifying Lowell downtown master plan. The public hearing is still open, is now reopened. This is a reminder. We're going to start out tonight with staff reports, any questions from the planning commission, applicant presentation, public testimony, be reopened, any general public comments, and applicant rebuttal. If you've been through all the rest of it, but no commissioner is, any commission member wish to disqualify him or herself for any personal financial interest in this matter reports tonight. Does any commission member wish to report any significant ex parte or pre-hearing contacts? Hearing none, does any member of the audience wish to challenge the right of any commissioner to hear this matter? Hearing none, is there any member of the audience who wishes to question the jurisdiction of this body to act on behalf of the city council in this matter? Hearing none, Oregon land use laws require that all issues be raised if the issues are to be appealed. Failure to raise the issues of this hearing may invalidate their further appeal. The staff go ahead and present their report.
Sure. You have in front of you what we termed an addendum. Essentially, what the addendum is a capturing key components of the conversation that happened since our last meeting, since the last planning commission meeting. So the hearing that was continued. We met, there was some desire, some frustration, some confusion about the content of the proposal. And there was a desire expressed to have more time.
Is that
Just
addendum a separate document?
Yeah. Well, no, it should be part of.
It was included in your title stack.
I don't have it printed. Is there a copy? Sorry.
You just share that.
Thank you.
So the two meetings were held since we last met. Those work sessions were really dedicated with the planning commission's consensus that we would focus on understanding what the proposed changes were. So there was some discussion that occurred, but the primary purpose was to get through the content so that there was some familiarity, some new planning commission members, in particular who felt needed an opportunity to sort of walk through the content. And so that's what we did. The addendum that you see is really about key elements that were revisited, some of the discussion that emerged, and then really circling back to staff's recommendation about those points. So staff's recommendation to the planning commission, the purpose of today's, the aim of today's meeting is really to hear from the public, to close the hearing and arrive at a recommendation from planning commission. So this body has the opportunity to make recommendations to the council. It will go to them, and then there'll be a separate set of hearings in front of council, and council will take the planning commission's report into consideration. So I'm going to just go over, I'm gonna try to be pretty succinct because we gave a pretty lengthy presentation last time. It's really gonna focus on the addendum item, so. If you want to go to the next slide there, Jeremy. I also wanted to call out, so it doesn't come out of nowhere, we have Zoe Anton on the call. Zoe is a urban designer. She was part of the team that developed the downtown master plan and has also been a consultant on this component. So the form-based, essentially taking that downtown master plan piece and helping us implement it in the way that it was really designed to be implemented. So she's on here, and we'll have an opportunity to hear from her on a couple of points here tonight, and obviously she can answer questions if the plan committee has. So this is just a quick overview of the schedule here. You know, this really is the code update and comprehensive plan update process that you see here that's lasted the last couple of years. A more comprehensive schedule shows the downtown master planning process, which was the 2 years prior to that, with engagement and with development. So, City Council and Planning Commission hearings early 2023. That's just kind of bringing us up to speed here now. Oh, thanks. Code committee members, there were essentially 2 iterations of the code committee, but these are members of your community who participated in the review and iteration on initial versions of the code. Then just kind of again, a high level concept of you have some ordinances in front of you that update the development. Okay. That update the development code and that update the comprehensive plan. And so what you see here is the blue, looks a little more gray here, is the downtown master plan. It is a refinement plan to your comprehensive plan. So the comprehensive plan is the thing that is the stated organized policy document for Lowell when it comes to planning. So it contains the community's. This is something that the community hands us when we walk into the community. And that we utilize.
Just want to make sure everybody's muted.
Okay. So when the master plan is adopted, it was adopted in 2019, it becomes, the next step is to implement it. So that gets implemented in a couple of key ways. One is that it gets implemented into the comprehensive plan. So there are references that need to be made to the downtown master plan. So a lot of what you see in the comprehensive plan updates is essentially just acknowledging that the master plan has been adopted. But then it also needs to be implemented into the code. So we have these policy levels, these goals, policies, concepts, and then they get implemented via the development code. And that's what a developer is handed when they say, hey, I want to do X. We say, well, here's the section of the development code that you need to speak to. And that's where you get down into the finer details. So the downtown master plan really was about adding goals, policies, strategies, adding a new map. So there is a regulating plan that is in the master plan, which is part of what we see here. That's something that has to be incorporated. And then it is itself a refinement plan. So it becomes itself an update to the downtown or the comprehensive plan. What this doesn't do, and this is something that came up in our meetings, what it doesn't do is this is not a comprehensive overhaul of the narrative of the inventories, tables, and figures of the comprehensive plan. This is a surgical document that's been updated, created rather, and then ripples back to the comprehensive plan. A comprehensive plan overhaul is a discrete and separate thing that this is not scoped to do. So key comprehensive plan principles, again, the community reached out to the Transportation and Growth Management Program. That's a combination of ODOT and Department of Land Conservation and Development and asked to help implement the downtown master plan, which had just been adopted at the time. But also looked to pursue some realization of long-standing comprehensive plan policies, including those above. So affordable housing, housing costs. So these were the elements that were beyond the downtown master plan that were an opportunity for some updates to the development code and implementing the master plan, which is 2005, excuse me, the comprehensive plan, which is the 2005 comprehensive plan. This is something that we generated since our last meeting that we think is helpful. We've gotten quite a few questions about, well, what is downtown? What is the rest of the community? And what is like everywhere? So kind of in a nutshell, anytime you see these building sheets or anytime you hear reference to form-based code, that is very much the downtown master plan. So it's that fixed area of the downtown area. These are the new zones that are proposed that all relate to implementation of this form-based code in the downtown area. Things that are specific to areas outside of the downtown would be the minimum lot size reduction that's proposed for the R1 and R3 zone, accessory dwelling units within the R1 and R3 zone, cottage housing in the R1 and R3 zone, single family and duplex dwellings reduction to required off-street to one required off-street space, some revised lot standards in R1 and R3, and then some adjustments to access that really were housekeeping items over the years for clarifying what access requirements are. Citywide, you come up with develop new procedures, essentially organize them in a different way. So we talked about how type 1, type 2, type 3, type 4. You've now organized those. So this is administrative. So it applies citywide. New definitions included in there that essentially relate to all these other things. And then a floodplain code that kind of came along for the ride. It was already adopted quite a while ago too. So, okay. So the key things that one of the things that we heard in the hearing last time was this issue around garage setbacks in the R1 and R3 zone. The current proposed language suggests a 10-foot setback and then has this exception that is for garages, carports, and other parking structures that take access from the front. There was a pretty strong pushback that we heard related to specifically the carport item, or excuse me, the garage setback. The garage setback wasn't an item that was specifically scoped as part of our project. It was sort of caught in that more general update realm. And so it is staff's recommendation that due to the sort of slope nature of the concerns that we heard that we recommend that be revised to 10 and just take the nuance out. So 10 foot with no caveats related to garages or carports. So that's one of the recommendations that staff has. Another one that came up was 18-inch elevation requirement. This came out of the downtown master plan. One of the things that makes it a little more unique is that it's referenced very specifically in the downtown master plan, the 18 inches. So it's a little bit harder to, any revision of that needs to be surgical and has to be addressed. So where sometimes a comp plan can say, well, we're addressing the spirit of what the plan said. This one is so specific about 18 inches that number one, staff recommends to keep the language as is. This is a matter of integrity for the master plan. But if the planning commission does wish to change the 18-inch requirement, it needs to be accompanied by a recommendation essentially to revise policy 4.2 in the master plan to revise the 18-inch requirement. Otherwise, we'll just have a direct conflict between the two. And so, the 18 inches, we've talked about it. It's about creating separation from the public and private realm. It's a design element. I think most folks can kind of close their eyes and imagine that kind of classic neighborhood that has the elevated stoop. Some of what we heard were concerns about Americans with Disabilities Act, concerns and access. There are ways to work around, specific instances where that's a requirement, but that's ultimately our recommendation, and then some nuance for how the planning commission might act if they see that differently. Henry, do you want to speak
Yeah,
to
sure.
carports? This was a conversation that took place in the second work session that I didn't participate in, but.
Yeah, so the carports was a topic that emerged from the planning commission work session. And it was related to a comment that if a carport is a garage, then it is, excuse me, if a carport is not a garage, then there's no limit on how large the carport can be. Well, that might be true, but a carport is limited in size due to its maximum lot coverage and setbacks. So those are two factors that would ultimately limit the size of a carport. However, if the planning commission feels that they want to restrict the sizes of carports, they may do so. Or that you can direct us to do some further research and present that to city council. But we believe the language is fine as is. Those two factors will limit the size of a carport.
Does a carport include an RV covering? Cover RV parking?
I think it would, yes.
My only comment is, how the hell are you gonna fit all this up on a 5,500 foot lot?
So minimum lot size was another item that we have discussed. So the current proposed language is 5,500 square foot minimum lots in the R1 and R3 zone. We've prepared a memo that was intended to sort of synthesize some context. There were questions about how was this arrived at, to what end, why. So it's essentially that memo is trying to summarize those details. In a nutshell, the city council of Lowell enacted a resolution to request a set of products, a set of scoped items for our work to undertake, and one of those was to investigate the reduction of minimum lot size. The comprehensive plan has had for 15 plus years on its books policies that aim at improving housing options and affordability, and reducing minimum lot size is a fundamental standard way to accomplish that. It's a pretty reliable way to enable addressing that particular policy. So that's how we engage in that. It goes into more detail about the journey that those sizes took from going quite a bit lower to coming back up, or excuse me, yeah, lower to up again.
So the main objective is to address affordability of lots. That's our main objective. Where is that data coming from?
The data.
That shows that a smaller lot size equals affordable housing.
I would like to interject here.
Let's,
I
before
actually,
you guys jump in real quick, let's finish the staff report, then we'll come around.
Then we'll circle back around. Okay, great.
Yes,
Yeah.
we'll circle back
Okay.
around here.
So staff's recommendation is to keep the minimum lot size where it's at. If adjustment is a recommendation of the planning commissions, staff's recommendation is to maintain some kind of adjustment to the minimum lot size to enable in the most practical sense, a positive finding when we generate findings for this work. So findings means that we're meeting the statewide planning goals. Statewide planning goal 10 holds you to a certain standard, and at this point, the decision to not reduce the minimum lot size is a harder finding to make. But our recommendation is that you look at that, and also as a means to address the future of housing your service industry, the families with school-age children, the folks looking to age in place. The Lowell is not exempt from the national, state, regional housing crisis, and so it's something that needs some strategy to address. And so this is a strategy that we were directed to investigate, and that's our recommendation for that. Henry, do you want to
Yeah,
speak to
sure.
the city on maybe the parcel dynamics of?
So this parcel is included within the confines of the regulating plan. It's currently slated to be designated public lands district because it's city-owned property. However, the city is attempting to sell that property, and a designation of public lands is not conducive to redevelopment. So we're just asking the planning commission to give us feedback as to what zone that should be zoned, essentially. What designation should be applied. The areas immediately around it are Flex 1, so that's entirely a possibility. So we're looking for your feedback on that, and that is a decision we need made tonight on this one.
And this is on the 310.
Yes. Yes, yep. That's why it's, you can see my comment, so we don't skip over it. Yeah. So it doesn't get accidentally rezoned to something that wasn't intended.
We're gonna get into this later.
Yes.
The
But yeah,
310.
your discussion should get into that.
Okay.
And then similarly, this was brought to our attention during the work sessions. Those two tax lots, 5,400 and 5,300. They're on East Main Street. They're within the confines of the regulating plan. They are proposed to be rezoned Flex 1, however, the school owns them. And keeping with how we've been rezoning the proposed rezoning of the lots, any school property is public, so we would propose that be designated public lands. And that was at the school's request as well, so. And that revision can be made on the regulating plan before it's adopted.
Yeah, so that's just the precedent for how we set up the plan before was if it's school owned, then
It
it's
remains
public
school.
land. So that's changed in the interim. Another thing that was a topic of discussion was, I think facade transparency is sort of representative of some concerns about the building standard sheets. So essentially the new zones for downtown and the sort of litmus test of, okay, is this something that is tenable? So that's something that we heard. Facade transparency is different than the 18-inch in that it was not specific proportions that were called out in those policies, right? So the 18-inch was written into the policy, whereas facade transparency is getting at, right? So this is from policy 3.1. Ground floor retail fronts that face the street shall have large, clear windows, especially around entries, to encourage transparency and a sense of place along the pedestrian realm. So that's part of the look and feel concept of the form-based code is how do you create a place where folks want to be, and facade transparency is one of the ways you do that. So the proportions aren't tied directly to the plan. There is a tipping point where you get to a proportion that probably doesn't quite fit the spirit of the policy, but it's not prescriptive. We asked, so the recommendation is to keep the language as it is. But if the planning commission does wish to adjust the percentage, they should simply keep in mind the spirit of policy 3.1. So we can kind of look at what that's trying to get at. We asked Zoe to join us because she developed some of the initial code concepts around this, but also the master plan policy language, the initial concepts around distilling our visual preference exercises and the workshops that we engaged in with the community to distill. And so Zoe is going to describe one of the things that we thought would be a really interesting test of this would be to say, let's take a development that has been, we have the convenience, frankly, of a development that has been proposed within the downtown. It was proposed before, obviously, any of this was formally adopted in the development code by a developer, by their own motivation. And so the question was, well, let's look at that proposal and see how it stacks up against the downtown master plan, against the building standard sheets. And Zoe, we asked to help us do that, is going to kind of present just a little bit of a an exercise in, okay, well, here's something that is approved. It's not just a concept, it's been approved and it is underway. And so Zoe, can you hear us here?
I can
run
hear you.
Okay, I can run the slides.
Great. So, yeah, sound check, you can hear me.
Yep.
Great. Well, this was going to be the introduction that you just gave, Jake. So, just
Okay.
a little bit of a recap. We are looking at the Downtown Flex 1 for this code review. I just put a screenshot of the page from the form-based code there for you on the left. And then just to kind of remind everyone where that is, it's the dark red parcels that are zoned Downtown Flex 1. And then where the green circle is, that's where the site is that we are looking at. All right. Next slide. So what you're seeing.
Are we talking about the city's property or are we talking about?
No, this is Jerry's talk.
Jerry's okay,
Jerry's property.
okay, thank you. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so right across the street from that. So what you're seeing in the top left corner is just a zoom in of what was on the previous slide, just so that we can kind of see it closer and walk through, you know, just like if we were using this, if you, the Planning Commission, were using this sheet to analyze a proposal that was coming to your desk. And then this is the real proposal that you've seen from Jerry from that development on the corner there. So, you know, the top line is use. It is planned to be commercial on the bottom and residential on top, which meets the intent there. Then placement. So the front required building line, which is 0 minimum to the parcel line, which I'm showing here his site plans, and you can see that he did build up to the parcel line, which is great. Not 100% of the building touches that, but if you notice in the text, it says the frontmost part of the building, so that can be a wall or a front porch, any part of the building that is built to that line, which this does meet by making the public space there. I guess a porch is usually raised, but you can see that there is a bench and it's obviously a public space and it's a covered space. So there is a covering over it, which you could say then, you know, the building is actually coming to the build to line. The next line is the side setback. So 0 to 10 feet. I don't know if you can see that closely, but he is meeting the side setback. The proposed development meets that. The rear setback is 0 to 10 feet, so plenty of room back there on the parcel. The parking setback is 30 feet from the build to line, so definitely because the building is on the build to line and the parking is behind it, it's set back farther than 30 feet. So that meets it. And then the parking setback from parcel lines without a required build to line would be a 6 foot minimum or 20 foot when abutting any residential. And this certainly meets that. You can see there in the bottom right corner that the phase 1 is circled. Is that the site plan is showing quite a setback from the next parcel. All right, next slide. So then we move to lot coverage. There's no minimum, and it says see note 3 and 4. Those notes are talking about just making sure we've met stormwater needs and all those things. And then lot coverage is 100% maximum. Again, you know, within the bounds of meeting your stormwater needs. And then the primary street facade, oh wait, Yeah, primary street facade built to the RBL, which we went over already. Height, the number of floors, so minimum 2, maximum of 3. This development proposal has 3 floors, and the ground floor elevation is 0 because commercial should be at grade, which is the bottom floor of the building is 0 above grade and above the sidewalk. And then the C note 7 for residential use is just saying, you know, if you did propose some residential on a non-street facing side, so if it was coming off the parking lot, for example, and you wanted it on the ground floor, you would want to have it be residential, so you know, at least a step up. Then Florida, but he doesn't have residential on the bottom here. Floor to floor height of a 10-foot minimum. Again, this is hard to see, but when you look closely at the site plan, the bottom floor is about 11 feet for the commercial, and then the 2 floors above that are both 10 feet. So the total building height is 32 feet. And the building height has no maximum, yeah, which is fine there. But yeah, 3-story maximum with a 10-foot minimum is met with this proposal. Next. So far, without having, I mean, before this was passed, he's met all of the things. Facade transparency, and I know this was already touched upon earlier today. The ground floor of 75% of the facade minimum, and then above that 40%. So, and that transparency is the, and it is defined in the code as clear glass. So this is where this development plan differs a little bit. I did do the measurements on the ground floor. This specific building that you're looking at that was in the plans does not meet a 75% facade transparency. And it's mostly due to that middle blank space right in the middle of the building. All the other windows are, you know, 9 foot by 12, but there's just some blank wall there in the middle. The upper floors do meet the 40%. So, you know, that's a question whether I think 75% meets the intent of the policy that was written in the downtown master plan. But if we want to look at this as a precedent for, you know, of good development in your downtown, then you could revise that 75% down to, I mean, something I would say I wouldn't go lower than 60%, but a 60% facade transparency, I think, could still meet the intent of your master plan, and also get that, you know, get that Main Street feel. Anything lower than that, you risk losing a little bit of the Main Street feel of the pedestrian realm being kind of comfortable and open as people walk past. And then parking, number of spaces, there's no minimum. And obviously this site plan, as shown before, did have parking in the back, which is great. I believe that's my last slide for this review. Yep. Are there, I guess, questions are later? Yeah.
Yeah,
Jake?
they'll stay tuned, and there may be some follow-up questions. We got one more slide here, and then we're going to wrap up our presentation. Thank you, Bill.
Yeah, the conclusion there is that this development meets the code except for one single line, which is pretty impressive given that Jerry developed this building and site plan without this code at all, just kind of meeting the intent of the master plan, the way that he looked at it. And now that it's been codified, it shows that it's, you know, it's a very viable piece and really easy for the planning commission to use, obviously, to go through and evaluate new proposals as they come in.
Thanks, Doug. So my last point here, this is just really summing up At this point, the ordinances that you have in front of you, staff request that the planning commission make a recommendation for approval, denial, or revision on proposed code amendments. There may be instances where the commission doesn't agree with a certain provision as proposed. There's an opportunity for the planning commission to make a motion to amend. The more specific we can be and organize those, the more clear that directive will be to the council or that recommendation. Those can be really specific, or they can be additional questions that the planning commission wants staff to bring to council to speak to more specifically around the justification or other nuances. So that is our report. Obviously, again, we have touched on what we saw as key issues that emerged from our conversations, both in the last planning commission meeting, but also in the work sessions that followed between then and now. So staff's report, Sharon.
Okay. Any questions from the commissions on this proposed tonight?
I sat down and wrote a little statement that I'd like to read
Is this,
at this time.
hold on, is this,
And then
right now, just give me a second. Right now, it's just questions based on what was just presented in the staff report. If it's about the
Yeah,
other stuff, we'll get to that.
I probably have a lot of questions, but
When we do our
I
discussion.
think we, in retrospect, I think we need a little, I can't believe that we're gonna sit here and go through all that and make revisions and then vote on it. Is that the plan tonight?
That is, the plan is to, if we're gonna make revisions and give a report to city council on what we think. They're the ones that's gonna make the final decision. They're just gonna go off of our recommendation. Or they can look at our recommendation, they can accept it, or they can deny it. And they don't have to accept our recommendation at all. So our motion would be for a recommendation to the city council on it.
I still would like to read my statement.
Let's hold that off until we get to the discussion
It
portion.
has to do with what we've just been looking at.
I know,
Right, but we're not there yet,
we're
Bill.
not at that.
Okay.
Do you have any questions on what was presented from there? Any questions what they brought up today?
Yeah, I suppose my question is, have you got a developer besides Jerry that's willing to come in here and do what we want him to do on the downtown plan?
I mean, that's not the scope. No, we don't have a developer to come
Okay.
and do what.
Uh,
Yeah, we create the framework, not the private side.
do you think there's a possibility that you got the cart before the horse on this?
What do you mean?
And, well, this city is a business. And, in all businesses, you do a plan, no question. But you can't outplan your business. The business has to tell you what the plan ought to be. And I am concerned that we're developing a downtown plan that really is, probably no developer is gonna come in and do that, especially in an unknown market like this is. We don't have a major highway rolling through here. We used to have a railroad. And at one time, this was quite a place, I understand. But there was reasons for that. I think that it can be built back, but I'm not sure that we can build it back with a very pricey downtown plan, which is basically what we're talking about here. And I know that there's been a lot of work on it, and you're taking stuff that's gone on in other cities, but we're not that other city. We are Lowell. And our city is a lot different than, say, Coburg or, gosh, Elkton has a pretty good major highway. Reedsport has and Reedsport, they actually have a city there, and most of the stores are locked up. And it's maybe because they overplanned. I don't know what went on down there. I only know what we're dealing with here in Lowell. And I think we're overstepping our area.
I think your question was, do we think we have the cart before the horse? And So I think there's a pretty compelling case study in Lowell right now about businesses telling the community, you know, how to accommodate them and how to make an accommodation for what they do. The city's in a position where it has leverage with a certain business coming into town to say, you know, we did some planning, we've identified how we want the community to work. And now the community can say with, based on code that has been predetermined and is objective, it can make a decision about how it wants to proceed. I think one of the real advantages of the form-based code is that it actually creates, I think developers who understand code would say form-based code is great because it's really clear and it's frankly, it's focused on key variables that are objective and that they can proceed with some amount of predictability around. I think it's strong. I think it's a strong plan for Lowell. So I don't think it's a cart before the horse. I guess that would be my answer to that question.
Any further questions?
Yeah. Can I ask all my questions now?
As long as they're based on what you're saying.
Okay. With regard to the downtown, what are we calling this zoning now? Sorry. Downtown Flex 1. So we have approximately 3 residences existing in that zone. If those houses were to be destroyed, are they able to I guess 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Are they able to rebuild as residents? Or our code really doesn't allow for single family residence in the downtown?
Not in that zone.
Right.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. So we've got this 18-inch downtown residential code, but our code isn't going to allow for residents to be replaced in the downtown.
There is residentials within the downtown area.
Yes.
There is. The Flex 1, the ones in the Flex 1 area, yes, those would not be residences if they were completely destroyed.
Okay, so is this 18 in Flex 2 as well then? Is that what, I mean, did I miss that?
It's in the downtown
Oh, it is.
residential.
Sorry, Flex 1 and 2. Okay.
But that's
Okay.
only on that residential part of the building.
Correct. I understand that. And I don't agree with that. I don't think we should tell. I just don't agree with it, but we'll get to that later. Then my other question is truly about the lot size. And because I think, I really want to see some hard numbers because I am in real estate. I don't do residential. I do commercial. I have access to residential information. And because it's out there, in Lowell, we sold lots that were 8,276 square feet for 114,500. And we sold one that was 7,405 square feet for 110,000. The city sold one that was 0.26 of an acre for $60,000. In Redmond, right now, you can buy a lot that is 5,227 square feet for $145,000. That does not equate affordability. No, I honestly, this is what frightens me because there is a guise and there is some sort of bill of goods trying to be sold here with this lot size. It does not work. You're asking free enterprise to reduce their profit margin because we have reduced the lot size so that we equal affordability. That is not how free enterprise works. It's not, unless you're gonna have some other way of holding developers accountable for their lot size prices to be reduced. And that's not our job as a city. That's not our job. I see too many cities involved in that sort of minutia of development. I don't understand it at all. And that's what makes me question the rest of what's going on in here, because that doesn't make sense. and it keeps coming up as it's, well, it's affordability, it equals affordability. It does not in any way, shape or form. There is no guarantee on that.
So are you, so just a
What's
quick
the question?
The question is, I want to know where the data came on that. Or was this just somebody's idea that we reduce the lot size because, hey, it's less land, they're gonna charge less?
It's, for me, I see that there's more to it than just affordability. It's producing more property.
Correct.
That's part of the exact, part of the same policy. There's provide more property. As well as try to afford affordability. Maybe making the smaller lot sizes not gonna affect affordability except for smaller homes, which is gonna be cheaper than a
It's not gonna be
large
smaller.
home.
It's their 45, they're
I mean, they
2,500 square feet.
can be,
See
you don't
that-
dictate what size the homes are.
I understand that. That's what my question was. What is driving this? And all I have heard is that it's affordability. But it's not affordability. What it is it's more homes, it's more.
Sounds like we're getting into more of a discussion.
Well, so-
Okay, so I just want, yes,
Aside from the data, what's driving this is the comp plan policies that Jake mentioned at the beginning. The city of Lowell has adopted policies to reduce lot sizes to make homes more affordable. So
where
that's,
were those policies
Where
adopted? Just send them out.
is that in the comp plan? I did not see that.
okay.
And that was the city council that adopted that.
And added to what you
Yeah, and
said,
that's the same.
I have some
job.
practical experience here. I actually built 3 houses on small lots. And they were 2-story houses because I couldn't put a 1-story house on there that had any kind of size at all on it. And these were 5,500 foot square lots or 5,200 or in that area. When I went to sell them, and this was in 2007, I got the top of the market for those, and it didn't matter what the lot size was.
I just don't
Yeah.
want, I'm sorry.
And
I just think that there's more to it. Let's continue that in discussion, because it's more of a discussion topic instead of a question.
So can I, because I think there was a question there that was.
I want to know where the data came from, because when I've asked the question, how did we arrive at this? I have been told on multiple occasions, it is because they want that the lots will be more affordable, and that is not the case. So then what are we basing it on? Because our recommendation is for the city council to approve this. This body will have been, you know, we're the ones who are doing the investigative work. We're the ones who are doing the stamp of approval on this. And if I'm gonna put my stamp of approval on something that is as arbitrary as saying, well, it's gonna be affordable, I wanna know where that came from.
And yeah, as a real estate agent, there's immediate.
Yeah.
Right, respectability from that perspective and the developing. I think one way to think about it, what I'm hearing from you, which I'm curious about, is sort of I think arbitrary is a bit strong a word, because I think what you're saying is you can reduce the lot size and still have a price that isn't necessarily less than something on the larger lot. That's what I'm
I think
hearing.
it's gonna go in the other direction.
But I would be shocked if there wasn't a compelling correlation between lot size and affordability.
I'm
I
not
mean-
seeing it.
So that's something that we could provide at council. That's something that you could direct us to say, show us good data, and I'm really confident that we could find a linear relationship. I do think that we have the comp plan policy is the origin, smaller lot size, and this isn't us, this is, we'll keep beating that drum, this isn't.
Sure, no, and I don't mean to belay the messenger. I'm
No.
just like,
No, and it's a good point, it's a good opportunity to speak further to it, but I do think that housing stock is another part of it that we probably don't speak to enough, this idea that affordability we can think of as the bottom rung, but affordability is, everybody has an affordability spectrum that says, I should be able to find housing in my sort of affordability range, number one, so that I don't take the housing from this category lower than me's housing, they need that affordability category. And it's, right, so this kind of laddering is, it's important to create the full spectrum, and so you have an opportunity to create housing stock for those who can afford it. I mean, I would be really interested to kind of hear how do you the real estate agent's insight on how you affect affordability. There's certainly nothing in here that says you tell the developer that they just have to build, unless you have some incentives, you have programs to do that.
That's what I was
not-
hoping would be in there, was if we could. The only way you're going to be able to dictate affordability is to have some sort of something in the code that says, if you're building low income housing, we're willing to take the parcel that you're purchasing and allow you to reduce those lots to 5,000 square. Some, like the St. Vincent de Paul development that we did years ago, they wanted to do smaller lots because it would help them get more lots out of that parcel in order for them to have more, offer more affordable housing to more families. We only had a certain number of lots that they could do up there, and they really wanted to do a smaller lot size. It wasn't possible at the time, but some sort of caveat like that. I don't know if that is possible or something that we can do.
So we do have that ability, it's called a variance.
Right,
That's still written into this. If we write it in there, then it's in stone. So some of that stuff, it needs to be variable. It needs to be able to come with us and say, hey, this is the lot size I'm looking at. Can we make a variance to make a smaller lot size?
so my understanding is this reduced lot size is in the code now, because those variances were coming to the planning commission, and they were coming to the planning commission before me, and I've been here for 2 years, so they were coming too often and too frequently to the planning commission, and it was more of a nuisance to the planning commission to have that than
I-
to do it.
That's what spurred them to look at
Okay.
lot size.
I think multiple, it's sort of evolved into many as a reference when it comes to the variance.
I don't know, I
It
wasn't here.
becomes an interesting litmus test of like, oh, there's been a variance to reduce lot size in town. There's a comprehensive plan policy that says reduce your lot sizes as a mechanism for addressing affordability. I think the question that you've asked, which I think the answer that we could provide, is if you had a directive to us that it, regardless of even your motion, at council come prepared with hard data that correlates lot size to what we're really using as the leverage for this whole proposal, which is your comp plan policy.
But I would want that data to come from a residential broker. I don't want that data to come.
Well, we're not gonna make up the
Okay,
data.
no, I would want somebody who is working in the industry, who is doing residential development to speak to that, because, or even an appraiser. Because this market is moving so fast and so quickly. I use RLID and it's not always up to date. So
Yeah.
I
We would use our.
I mean, I use it on a daily basis, so I'm just saying that. And how we could regulate it, I'm fine with that. I mean, smaller lot sizes means more properties, means more building permits, means more sewer hookups, more water hookups. It means more revenue for the city, which means more revenue for the schools, more revenue for the fire department.
More children for the school.
More children, we're already busting at the seams, which is a great thing. Never gonna complain about that. But it also means that we are having a lot more people out here. So what is it going to do to everybody's quality of life out here? Just because we can, doesn't mean we should. And really, what is the impact on what we're doing here? Because that's what I want to get to. We do have older people here. We do have other people here. We do have families who come here. We have generational families that want to come to this place and they cannot afford it. Already can't afford it.
I'm gonna stop you for a second.
I know.
We're gonna get that back to discussion.
I would like to add just one more thing we really haven't talked about is the fact that we do have in Lowell now, something no other city has in Lane County. And that's a 7,000 foot lot minimum. Everybody else is 55, even up in Oak Ridge. It's 5,500 square feet.
Yeah, Oak Ridge is 6,000.
And
Where everybody else is
if you have
6,000.
if you have a business, you have to be able to have something that nobody else has. And this is what we have. So that's an attraction for people to want to look at Lowell, I think.
Bill, we're gonna take that to discussion.
Yeah. Yeah, we're still.
So,
Okay,
Uh,
we're not discussing now.
Not yet.
What the hell this is all about.
this is questions regarding what they presented to us tonight.
I understand, but
And then
I'm
we'll
having
get-
some questions of what they presented to us tonight, and part of that was a 5,500 foot lot.
Right,
Right.
and we asked the question, we regarded
Okay.
it, the
Yeah.
decision has to be made in a few minutes. The discussion, where you're gonna bring up your letter and everything else, we will get to that.
Mr. Chairman, I believe Laura had something to add.
I just wanted to answer one of the questions, that was made about non-conformities.
Mhm.
And
Oh, yes. I
in
did.
section 9.408, non-conforming uses are addressed. And subsection B addresses destruction of a non-conforming use or structure.
Mhm.
And it allows the replacement of that use or structure. And it shall meet the current provisions of the district, or they may apply for conditional use to continue as they were before. And a residence may be replaced in any zoning district.
Okay.
This as a kind of a conditioner report.
Mhm.
So I think that addresses your concern about replacing residences.
Thank you. Yes, appreciate that.
Any other questions regarding what they presented tonight?
No, I got it. I got my answers. Thank you.
Okay. So we're gonna go back to public testimony then. Are there any members of the audience who wish to speak in favor of this proposal? The online in the room? Are there any members of the audience who wish to speak against the proposal?
I have a question. Now, they're talking about lot sizes and stuff, which is it part of that, it's not part of that downtown thing, is it, right?
It's part of the overall comprehensive plan for all of the city.
It is distinct from the downtown master plan geography.
Okay, well, then I would like to speak in opposition of it.
Okay, you want to go ahead and take a stand at the podium and announce who you are and where you live?
That's even for you to say.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. My name is Ken Hearn and I live at 40 Trailblazer Court. Like I said, I don't fully understand everything on here. I know that when we developed this code, when the city of Lowell developed this code back in 04, 05, 06, somewhere around in there. You know, we thought it was a pretty damn good code then. And I mean, I can understand updating it and all that stuff, but I don't understand why it's crapped out our, what we thought then, and what the council and the public approved of back then, which specifically the 7,000 square foot lots. And there's more to it than affordability. It's also livability, which both commissioners have expressed a concern with, is livability. And I think that's really important for Lowell. 5,000 square foot lots or 5,500 square foot lots or 6,000. Those are in all the other cities around here. Commissioner George is correct that we have a product here that is different. And I don't want our houses in Lowell looking like San Francisco. You know, when they're just right next to each other and there's no space at all. No room for kids to play, no play structures, not even enough room in there for it. It's crazy, in my opinion. The only people that 5,500 square foot lots benefit is developers. If they buy a piece of land that's 8 acres And they develop it out to get the most lots that they can out of it, 7,000 square foot lots. And maybe a little bit left over at the end where it doesn't meet the 7,000. So, you know, just because they brought 4 of them in here to this planning commission and asked for a variance, you say that's overwhelming for the city and overwhelming for the planning commission, that's crap. 4 is not overwhelming. If you had 200 of them, that would be overwhelming for a planning commission of the size of Lowell. But four variances in I don't know how many years, but I know when I was on it, we didn't have any except for Mr. George's. And you know, and then that was approved also. But in reality, the only one that really benefits is the developers. And then it's all cookie cutter stuff. And when you get to the smaller lot sizes, you have to have double stories, which hinders people like me who's handicapped and cannot walk stairs. It's crazy. You're preventing a group of people from not coming here because one thing that fits on this is either a 900 square foot house or a larger house with 2 stories. And some of us, I mean, I built my house, when I built my house, I made specifically that it was only a 1-story house, you know, with not even doorknobs, but the lever handles, because I knew I was gonna get old someday. I didn't know I was gonna have a stroke, but I knew I was gonna get old. Which I did. If you want the smaller size lots, go to Cobra, go to Springfield, go to Eugene, go to Oak Ridge, go to anywhere but here, but don't make us look like everybody else. We're not everybody else. We're Lowell, just like Mr. George said. Let's be unique. Let's be different. I don't want to make it. I mean, I developed 4.5 acres of property too. So I have been a developer in this town, and my standards were a little bit different because I'm a different kind of guy anyway. But the only people that's going to make money for it and benefit even is developers. It's not going to be. And I agree with Ms. Kinsley that she's got some statistics that are very compelling. That smaller lot sizes. This town can afford. In 2005, I guess it was, we had somewhere around 300 dwellings in Lowell. And after we did our remodeled our sewer system and our septic system, we could double the population of Lowell right then, and not increase any FTEs at all. I mean, our storage water capacity would handle doubling the size of this town back then, and I'm sure it's probably the same now. I can't imagine it being different because the sewer water system can handle a lot of single family dwellings and multi-family dwellings. So you get anything above that now we're going to get into more expensive, higher taxes, higher water rates. I mean, I want people to come into Lowell as much as anybody. I did back then and I do now. 5,000 square foot lot or 5,500 square foot lot is not going to accomplish that goal. We can be different. Yeah, we got 7,000 square foot lots, enough room for play structure, carports, garages, RVs, parking. Have it be aesthetically nice. I heard you guys talk about the 18-inch. That's my spiel on 7,000 square foot lots. If it's required because of the comp plan, reject the comp plan, go back to the city council. I'll go to the city council and ask them to rescind the whole goddamn thing. And I'm sorry, the whole darn thing, and get back to where we should be in Lowell, which is not what LCOG necessarily wants to do. It's what the citizens of Lowell want to do. At least the planning commission, they live here in Lowell. You guys don't live here in Lowell. This young lady up here, she doesn't live in Lowell. I assume. I don't know that for a fact, but I'm going to assume that you guys don't care. You're gonna finish your bid here. You're gonna get paid. LCOG's gonna get paid. You guys are gonna walk away to your 5,000 square foot lots in Eugene or Springfield or wherever it is that you live. But we are the ones that have to live with this day after day, year after year. And I don't want to live like that. I want some space. I want to be able to wave my arms. I want to be able to have a barbecue in my backyard to accommodate my neighbors and my friends. my Friday night, dinner company. But move on to a different subject. This 18-inch minimum, now that falls under this category here too, right? Or right, wait, we get into the next thing. Same thing. 18 inch, that's, if you take the 18 and divide it, you know, I mean, you're talking at least 3 steps. 3 additional steps, and for people like me, that's just crazy. I do not understand why that even came up, that doesn't make any sense to me at all, as a builder or a developer. Which I have done both, and you know, if you're gonna start making stuff up in the downtown area, you're gonna make us people that with walkers and canes and stuff like that, walk up more steps to get inside. I mean, my wife falls down all the time now, she's handicapped also, and she falls down way too much now. Got broken ribs included, and these steps are not gonna help me at all, and I don't see. All you guys go to these fancy schools to get your degrees in planning and stuff, which is all fine, we need it, I agree with that, we need it. But not what you're saying, let's use common sense instead of what some book tells you. Or, and so making additional steps between sidewalk and dwelling, whether it's single family dwelling, multi-family dwelling, or downtown businesses, don't put that handicap on us. And those handicapped people, that's just crazy. Let me see what else I have. We're not talking exterior lighting yet, are we? That's in the next one.
That's not part of this.
That's not part of this discussion. Okay. Yeah, got the lot size. The lot size for a multi-family dwelling, you're making it even worse. I mean, 7,000 square foot lots for a single family dwelling is fine. 5,500 is not fine. It's even worse with the multi-family. Then you got duplexes and stuff on it, 5,500 square foot, the same thing that you're trying to say for a single family dwelling. And that's crazy, that's absurd. Yeah. Now, we're not talking, are we talking zoning now, or is that later too?
That's later.
Okay, I'd like to come back up when we talk about zoning.
Well, you could talk about zoning, it's proposed, the properties within the right.
Is it inside the?
With the zoning,
No, that's within this one, with all the same public hearing.
yeah, I don't have a problem with what you proposed on the downtown zoning or rezoning. I do agree with Ms. Kinsley that the grandfather clause and this young lady here, you know, I thought that was in the code, but I couldn't refer to it, and I didn't have any numbers on it, but that's usually a grandfather thing is, but if something burns down to the ground, that you can replace it, even if it doesn't meet the current zoning laws for that particular lot. You know, so anyway, so I don't have any problems with the zoning on the downtown property, now the zoning on the rest of it. One specific lot out on Moss, I do have a problem with that one, but I'd like to.
That one's not tonight.
That's not on the agenda tonight. so-
No.
That one's already zoned, that's for a different meeting altogether.
Okay,
That's not even within the scope at all.
Yeah.
Right.
I know it wasn't within the downtown scope, but they know we were talking about it. Right?
That'll be March 1st.
Okay, I've got that down. I'll be back then to talk about that. And it's the same way with some of the specific codes, right? For building codes, that's gonna be March 1 too.
Building codes is tonight. March 1st is strictly the property down the road that you were talking about, for rezoning and potential use.
Okay, so exterior lighting is on the agenda for the
Exterior lighting is not part of this group of stuff. We didn't make any changes to exterior lighting.
So you're saying that's already etched in stone or what?
That's.
That's, it's existing, it is what
Yeah,
it
it's
is right
been
now,
for
as it exists
years.
today.
No, there was some change. There was some change in the exterior up lighting and down lighting on single family dwellings. Is that not right? Am I wrong on that? 'Cause that's what I read.
I read it here that it is changed. It's the downlighting is only for new construction. But there is a parcel in here, and I'm not sure where I saw it, where the city administrator can go to an existing house that's been here for 20 years and say, I don't like the way your lighting is, change it. And that is in here.
9.528.
And then the last sentence of it talked about downlighting, and then it says that the city manager has the right to tell everybody in town that they have to change their existing lighting and go to, all down lighting. And if that's the case, I'm opposed to that too, however, wherever it falls in, but.
No,
It's
it's gonna be
existing code, that has nothing to do with what we're working on tonight.
Well,
That's
we're
not-
changing codes, is that right?
Certain
There's a
parts
whole
of the
bunch of
code.
lines through codes we did
Well,
that,
I think one thing,
and it's
point
been
out is-
rewritten.
imagine this is a procedural question, which is the city manager probably has an appealable opportunity, appealable meaning that they enact something. because
That's not the way it's written.
Ministerial. It should be. It should be in
I
there.
agree, but that isn't the way it's written, and we're
Okay,
asking.
so, but what I heard was that the manager can tell everybody in town that they have to do something with the lights, which is that would not be the case. It would not proactively tell as manager.
I don't know, I'm trying to find it, but
But-
you say that that's not the case, but stuff gets changed and that's what I'm talking about.
Regardless, exterior lighting has nothing to do with tonight's.
So-
topic.
It is, because we're turning something from it.
Is that what you're saying?
Well,
It's out against everything.
So the part of this part of the code, 9.528, was not touched by this group as part of the revisions.
I understand.
And I understand what you're saying is maybe it needs to be changed, but that's not what we're here to discuss tonight
That's
on
not
this
the,
part.
that's.
No,
not
but
the-
Now,
you're
I'm asking, is that something we're gonna?
That's what I'm saying.
Is that gonna be discussed with, or is it not?
It's not part of this plan that was presented to us.
Well, then how do I get it changed? How do I, as a Joe Blow citizen, who do I go to
There's
get
a-
that part of the code changed?
City council,
I can do that.
then go before the city council to ask them to look at it for a change. And then they would pass it out to whoever would work on that project.
Probably the planning commission.
Probably the planning commission. That is a separate part of the comprehensive plan that was not touched by what this particular project is about, this project.
I hear where you're coming along, but this is what I got to make a decision on. And that's in
Thank
here.
you.
I understand, I'm just telling
And
you, all we're-
if we say, yeah,
But
we're
it's not
with the
ready.
whole plan,
It's not ready.
that means that it was not.
Right.
It's not part of this discussion.
Right,
Let's get that into the, we'll get that into.
Well, yeah, let's move on from here and leave that for your debate.
We'll leave that for our debate. Is there anybody else that wants to speak against it? I have a question.
I have a question.
Okay. Question over there.
Regarding the, city-owned parcel that they want to rezone to, the PL-D is not conducive to selling it. So if we're looking at Flex 1, so then that translates into the 2 parcels owned by the school, which are supposed to be rezoned to Flex 1, but they're recommending PLD. So that didn't make sense to me because those 2 city-owned parcels are right in that.
The city is looking to sell off one parcel,
Yep,
and that would require us to change it from PLD
Yeah.
to Flex 1 or
Correct.
residential, so that it can be sold for whatever.
I agree with that,
The school property is already owned by the school,
right?
it's in Flex 1, it's already owned by the school. And so we're just asking that we just initiate and we'll have to throw that in as public lands in the downtown area.
Okay, so no intention of selling that into the commercial area.
No, the school owns that. And if it's.
Essentially, they bought that.
Yeah, if it's something that would come up at a later date, we would relook at it, and that would be, have to relook at that.
Okay, thank you.
unless the school gets a donation of a large chunk of money. We're in
To swap
the
it.
vicinity.
Yeah,
Yeah, my question is probably a procedural one, but getting back to the only things that you can look at are the things that would change. Who decided what was going to be changed? Because if I can't question, if I can only question things that got changed, something didn't get changed because somebody made a decision, this was fine, but I don't think it's fine. And I think it should have been changed. Then,
it wasn't within the scope that was presented to LCOG. We have the opportunity to make other changes in the future to the comp plan. That has to be set up as a new project. not, the other project was the downtown plan and getting that implemented into the comprehensive plan. All the other stuff that is in the comp plan that we need to make changes to needs to be set up as a separate project and then sent back out to be worked on. That it just wasn't part of the scope that was presented to them.
But the changes that they're talking about go far beyond what's just in the downtown plan.
The only one would be the revised lots sizes. And that was something that was also brought up to them, was to look at reducing the size.
Yeah, we had a
It
really,
was in scope.
we had a really specific scope. I mean, your question is reasonable. I mean, I think there's a certain amount of. We have a scope that has a little bit of range, let's say. The lighting question at the meeting where the planning commission is coming up with a recommendation to council, I think it has as much to do with where we're at in this process as it has to do thematically. It's thematically somewhat different than what we've been talking about, but it's also kind of it's just 11th hour, like, we're gonna have to, and this is quite common, you have things that you pick up and they turn into other update projects. I think that's where we're coming from with the, we were scoped to do that. Right here, we've had hearings and notice, and so throwing that one out here in this meeting would be a little bit preemptive, proceed like process wise.
The phrase is scope creep.
Is what?
Scope creep. We had a very specific contract with Elcott to do X, Y, and Z. And then, there's a lot of different things that can be adjusted in this code, but that's not what our contract was.
Correct.
And we could start adding stuff, and then a project this size starts to get this size, and all of a sudden, it's too much to try to do all
And the
at once.
understanding is that the scope was derived by the city council, correct? Or incorrect?
Correct, that is correct.
It was not derived by the council or the group of committee people who put together the recommendations.
There's a resolution that TGM requires any city pass that says,
Okay,
so it's a formal ask by the council.
so it was a formal ask by the council. The committee took that criteria that the council said and worked with you to come up with what is presented in front of us, correct?
That's right.
Okay, I just wanna, because this is a arduous process. It's taken over 2 years now. A lot of the people are gone. The person who was driving the bus is gone.
Yeah.
We have all new people in place, and so there's a lot of missing information because they took it with them. So,
Yeah.
and then we have a lot of people who have questions,
Yeah,
myself included.
yeah, throw a pandemic in there.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's a party.
I'm Jackie McNeil. I just wanted to ask you about that piece that they were talking about. Is that an apartment building or is that a commercial?
It's a commercial downstairs and apartments, second floor and third floor.
And how many apartments are in that second? and third?
I think there's plan for 10 dwelling units above.
Okay, my question is he making any allowances for playing area for children or anything?
It wasn't, it's not required in our code.
The park.
The park is across the street. No, it's understandable,
Children.
but it's kind of across the street from the park, and then Kent was able to access the park.
They have, no, I know, but
I understand,
That's not a good idea.
I guess,
but, yes, it's not in the plan to require it,
Why?
because it was never brought up during any of the discussions.
We're discussing it now.
This plan has already been adopted.
Yeah, why are we discussing it then if we can't say anything or do anything about it? Why did you bring it up?
This was illustrative for how the proposed code is something that is tenable because it has a real world application that has been proposed by a private developer and has been approved. So it wasn't intended to be called up for a referendum or review. It was to provide an example of something that's been approved that fits the code that's being proposed as a sort of litmus test, which is pretty compelling.
I do have a question about the setback on that.
On this,
Yeah, just because this is the example that they used. So, because this is a 0 lot line, right? The building sits right on the lot line. So there is no green space in between the sidewalk and the building. It's concrete, correct? So there's no, And maybe they would have to come to us for, variance or something, because in commercial real estate, which is what his ground floor product is, people who have a restaurant or whatever would like outdoor space. I see that there are 2 benches on this drawing, and one of them is perpendicular to the building, which would tell me that that bench would be right in the middle of the sidewalk, correct?
I
That,
wouldn't take that as actual representation of what you're gonna.
but I'm just saying that we would have to have a variance if somebody wanted to have something like that. Is that possible? Or is
You
there?
mean the ideal scenario you described?
Yeah, so if I
The-
say I'm building this building and I wanna have a restaurant with outside seating on the outside, how do we accommodate that?
So if you look at the
That
master
sort of setback.
plan. We can get into it, but we didn't want to deep dive on this development.
No, and
There's a very unique dynamic on North Shore,
Uh-huh,
right? So there's the swell that is actually right of
oh,
way,
yes, yes, yes.
which essentially rendered, and again, his development wasn't subject.
No, it's
To the
not
master
subject to
plan,
this,
right?
but I'm
So-
thinking for the future, because we have
So if
property
you-
across the street.
If you looked at the master plan,
Uh-huh,
it essentially requires exactly what you're describing,
oh,
which is that public space.
I guess I missed that.
And on Pioneer, there will be a planner strip, because that is.
Yeah, I see the planning district kind of there. Okay,
Can I ask a question about, Jerry's plan up here?
we're not discussing.
I wouldn't really, John, I wouldn't really.
Jerry's question about parking. They had that proposed part, is diagonal parking more conducive or less conducive? Because he had,
The parking's up to them, you don't dictate if it's diagonal or straight. It's just parking in.
You dictate how much parking,
So,
we could put 1 spot in that sense.
No, we have a spot per.
In that
square,
case, yes, the planning commission did dictate how many parking spaces are required. and met it.
yes, in that particular one, but the rest of the plan, it says that they have to have 1 spot.
No, in the downtown area, it's exempt.
Mhm.
What was left, the downtown area is exempt of any parking requirement?
That's correct. Aside from the residential detached, there's 1 off-street parking space required.
So someone from Colbert says, oh, let's go to Lowell, I understand they've got a new downtown.
We're gonna bring this back, if you guys have any more proposals. Okay. There's no more against the proposal. You guys have any further comment? So the public hearing is now closed at 8:22, and it's 8:15. Now it is up to the commission for discussion and decision. Bill, you said you had something you'd like to read?
Yes. I was in the red circle on the first, I came onto this committee in that red circle, December, I think it was. So December of last year, I read in the bridge that there were a couple of openings on the planning commission, so I applied. I was accepted by the council, and during one of the first meetings I attended, we were supposed to have an up or down vote on an ordinance adopting text amendments to Lowell's development and comprehensive plan, and this is on the schedule again tonight. At this meeting, after some discussion, we decided to postpone this decision and do some work sessions, so those of us new on the commission could catch up. It was then I realized how much work my colleagues have been doing in the last 2 years, along with help from LCOG. This is Lane Council of Governments. This comp plan is what a developer will look at if he's interested in developing in Lowell. For these reasons, it is important to present a current plan. The last plan was developed in 2005. I think it will be some time before we take on this important task of bringing this 2023 version up to speed, as it has been 18 years from the last time. I will now try to give you some reasons to take a closer look. It has been written, we reduced our lot size to 5,500 square feet. Lowell is the only small city in Lane County with a lot size minimum of 7,000 square feet. This is a huge selling point for the people looking to relocate. The new subdivision up on Moss was sold even before the houses were built, and all of those lots were 7,000 or better. I built 3 houses on 4th Street. The lots were already plotted and plumbed to 5,500 square feet or a little less. I can't remember exactly. The only solution was to build 2-story houses. And I did, and they were 20,000 or 2,080 square feet houses. Single houses, the same size, would take up too much space, and you could not allow for the required setbacks if you tried to do it. In our work sessions, the LCOG rep said, well, the developer could make these lots bigger if he wanted to. I find this humorous because most developers are trying to get the most out of their investment. And if smaller lots will do that, I think we must remember, after the last house is sold, the developers are out looking for the next project, hopefully here in Lowell. I will agree with Mia Nelson when she said that at the January 4th meeting, all new homes and apartments built in R1 and R3 zones must have a garage pushed back 5 feet behind the front of the house. This would make most of our current houses in Lowell illegal. I don't even think you could get away with it in Texas where all the lots are flat. I think we need to build to suit the lot size and shape. Roy Nelson also brought up a problem of 18 inches of steps to the front door, making everyone do steps. I'm not sure why. I think we may be ahead of ourselves in the design of the downtown district, zone DF1 and DF2. In trying to understand how it should look, it seems like a nice design, but awfully expensive to build. I think our major problem is we do not have an existing downtown to build on. This is an area that should be developed with the cost to the developer in mind. The biggest problem is parking, and the downtown plan has not really addressed it. During our second work session, our city administrator said, if someone is parked in the wrong spot, I will just have them towed away. I think we need more housing and people to interest someone in developing in our downtown. Until then, I advise downtown land for sale, make your proposal. This would let us be selective as to what type of businesses are proposed. I would rule out, for instance, an adult shop, just saying. I am especially interested in Jerry Valencia's project, which has all the attributes of a sound design, with plenty of off-street parking. If this is a success, others will come. Our shining spot is our schools. As many of you know, I have some rentals, and before I turn them over to a management company, we would get several calls each month from families looking to move to Lowell. This was because of our great schools. The school projections from the 2000 census, which is what everything I read in here is from that census. And we've had 2010 and 2020 that we could grab some stuff from. The census, the school projections from the 2000 census are 526 students by 2025, using the largest growth rate that they had, which was 2.5%. Presently, between charter, homeschool, and public schools, we have, at the last count, 937 students. This is why we need to use our most recent 2020 census to obtain all the most recent projections from our community. The other factors are fishing, clean air, great people, less traffic, and the Bridgetown market. When I was mayor in Lane County, Lane County had all the city mayors meet each month. And I advertised Lowell as a banana belt of Lane County, with the sun on your back going to work and coming home from Eugene. And it's still like that today. I feel sorry for those poor souls living in Bonita. I want to thank all of those who have donated so much time of their time to update this plan. However, I feel it needs more work. This important document has so much to do with our future, and we cannot afford to get it wrong. I'll probably be a no vote tonight.
No, I don't have any statement to read or anything. I think that we've spent a lot of time on this. I appreciate everybody's time and effort, especially LCOG. You guys have taken the brunt of a lot and you're just the contractor we use to facilitate this. So appreciate that, but I think a lot of things have been missed just by way of controversy. I'm not a fan of the no parking in downtown Lowell. I mean, they'll use the school district, but when we have when we have an event at the school district and somebody has a restaurant downtown, if you don't have parking for a restaurant, and we're not a real downtown, I mean, I don't want anyone to fool themselves. If we don't have parking, that restaurant isn't gonna make it, which means they're gonna fail and it's going to be a vicious cycle. So with our particular downtown, I'm really not a fan of that no parking zone. It doesn't make sense. And that's the type of thing I'm talking about when I'm saying, just because you can, doesn't mean you should. And how well does this code changes translate to our existing city? We are not Coburg. We're not going to be Coburg. We're very quickly becoming landlocked. I mean, because we don't have anywhere to go. We have so little multifamily residential that it's not even fun. I mean, we have one that's not developed, plus Jerry's, so two. Others they have houses sitting on it, single family homes sitting on land that's going to be R3. And I mean, it just doesn't equate. We need affordable housing. Everybody needs affordable housing. You can't make more land. The land that we have is what we have, and we need to steward it well. And are we stewarding it well? I think that things were made, people were frustrated, or they want to see this certain thing. They want to see a quaint downtown. That's not the goal. We have a piece of property that is in the Flex 2 that belongs to Coach Dilly. And Coach Dilly has owned that piece of property forever because he wants to, when he can no longer work his land out on Renegade and climb stairs, he wants to build a little single-story home for him and his wife to be able to enjoy in their golden years. I don't know, it'll be 120, I don't know. But our code doesn't fit for that. The proposed changes do not fit for that. And I feel like it is somebody's idyllic vision of what we have, what Lowell, they want Lowell to be, or wanted Lowell to be, and maybe that person's not even hearing. And we've kind of taken this on. Is it right? And is it something we should be doing? Is it going to benefit? What are the benefits of this? We get this pretty little building there. Oh, okay. But at what cost? Is it a hindrance to the owner? Is the land going to sit there forever and not be developed? Are we deterring people from coming here? Are the people that built this community with their blood, sweat, and tears and milled the lumber for the school and sent their kids there and everything else now being told because of design standards that they're not welcome to stay in this town? Those are things that unintended consequences of changes, because we're trying to make it better. And I get that. And I love to see the quaint little streetscape. I would love to see that, but I can go to Eugene and see that. I don't know if that fits for here. I am perplexed. I am waxing and waning because to me, this is a big weighted decision. This is my stamp on this. And my jury is out on several aspects. I'm sorry. I was hoping to be at a place where I could say, yes, no, yes, that change is great, this would work. But the more I look through this, the more I find that I'm like, wait, what does this mean? And then I'm flipping back and forth. And then you guys bringing up the lighting thing. I'm like, wait, where did I miss that? I mean, my head is spinning, and I appreciate the time and effort poured into helping us get up to speed. I really do. Honestly, we can't catch everything, so we've got to make a referral, right? So of some sort on this, because I know you've been here for the whole 15-act opera.
Point out is the council does have the authority to, of its own motion, bring this matter forward. So I think that's their prerogative. So there is a certain amount of like capture a recommendation, whatever it is, or risk potentially just kind of having the council essentially take it.
See, and
Recommendation.
I understand that. And here's my hope on that, is that the council will recognize the amount of time, effort has been put into this. And realize that we're in a position where commercial real estate broker, a developer, the fire chief, and somebody who has done top to bottom development are still in a position where they can't give this their full stamp of approval. Maybe we need to pump the brakes on it. That's what I would hope our city council would recognize. Because this body has more knowledge on it regarding what you're asking as a whole than the city council would. And I don't mean to disparage the city council, but they don't have the knowledge base that we have. I do have a question for you as fire chief. 3-story buildings with residential on the 3rd floor. What does that do to your requirements? And
When it comes to us, we put in a requirement to take the sprinklers in there for residential.
okay,
And that's separate of this.
sure, no, but it's because we are seeing those, and I don't think anyone's asked that question. But fire life safety, small lot sizes, defensibility.
The rest of it, not a problem. Smaller lot sizes, not gonna affect my ability, because I still have access, and that's all built in to working code.
Okay,
So it doesn't affect lot sizes or how many homes are there.
well, the off-street parking, because we did
Off-street
talk
parking
about,
makes it easier for me to be able to get my truck down there.
no,
It's-
but we're talking smaller lot sizes. People, okay, I'll own it. I got 7 vehicles. And a camp trailer, and a trailer. What else do I have? Another trailer. And, okay, it spills out onto the road. We're lucky, we have a bigger road, but I'm not alone. When we did the St. Vincent de Paul project, we had families of 4 that came with 7 vehicles. And they were on the sidewalk and on the street and all that sort of stuff, so.
But that's a different section of the code that we're not in.
It may be, Lon, but that's a fact.
It
And
is.
it's what's really going on. Almost all of us have at least 2 cars. And my duplexes up there, every one of them have at least 2 cars. And that's because of where we work. We're not the kind of town like, we're not gonna walk into town. We're not gonna ride bicycles even into town. When we get ready to go somewhere, we'll get in a car and go. And so we have to accommodate the fact that that's what we are. And all the plans that we have here are not really addressing those kind of thoughts, I think. And from what I have been able to glean from what's going on here,
Yeah.
even, and especially
I
with
just
the
answered the
downtown
question.
plan.
No, and I appreciate that. That's what I mean, it's unintended consequences where we're doing that we're gonna create. There's just not all the steps have been thought of, because I don't think that the right people were there to ask the right questions when things were being implemented. It's pretty, and oh, let's put porches on it, that looks great, and this, that, and the other. But there's other things that you need to think about when you're making these sorts of changes, and I wasn't there. Actually, I was told I wasn't welcome. So, I wasn't there, and so I don't know the thought process that went through all of this. But I have some recommendations to make, and I have some other recommendations to make. So how are we gonna go through this?
What would happen,
Give me a sec.
what would happen if, I'm sorry.
So I have been here through this whole thing. I have been here through
God bless you, man.
the previous part, the whole downtown. My one concern is I have seen several times since I've been here, that when community brings something up that they would like to see different, we ignore them.
I guess.
And this is just another one of those times when we're taking something that the community has said, and we're saying, you guys don't know enough, so we're gonna ignore you. I don't wanna be that guy that just says,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you put enough effort in the beginning. Everybody had the opportunity to come up to the downtown planning, to the code stuff. It's been open for several years, and my concern is, I don't wanna be that guy in the planning commission that gets told, you never listened to what we had to say.
I agree.
And that's my one concern with all of this is. We're not taking into consideration that several years have gone into this, there's been several group meetings. The community said this is what we want, they want the quaint downtown. They sat here and looked at pictures on the wall of what they would want our city to look like. And what got presented to us is what they all came in and said, we had this whole room packed with people for an entire weekend. And they said, here's what we think we would like, if we're gonna do a downtown plan, this is what we would like to see. That's what Elcom put together and brought to us. Then we brought the code together and said, here's the code. And they spent a long time looking at all that stuff and putting it together. Are we going against what people are saying that they want done? Because we feel that we know more than they do. I'm just asking.
No, it's
Because-
valid, you're valid.
Like I said, while we're in here discussing this, we do have people come in, we have a few people came in tonight, a few people last night said come in. And they've given their part, by means, we're not looking at the whole city, on either side.
I really understand what you're saying, and I congratulate you for all the effort that you put into this. But the one thing I think we're all missing is the fact that this town will dictate to us. I'm talking about its strength, and it is, this town is no different than any other business out there. And you cannot overstep your business or you'll lose it.
I understand that.
And I think what we were doing is overstepping the business. I grant you, I would love to see that same design in our little downtown here. And I'd like to see a bakery and a beer joint and a coffee shop or whatever, a bunch of little stores, and it's so refreshing. If you go to the San Juan Islands, that is what you see. All those little towns, they're just gorgeous and it's fun to be around. But it takes a developer with his own money to come in here and do that. And if we set it up so that it's damn near impossible for him to come up with the right numbers to make it make sense to him. So the gross multiplier actually makes sense in that business, then it's not gonna happen. And we have to really take that into consideration as a number one problem. And we are all by ourselves. We're the only city that's like us in Lane County. There may be some others in Oregon, but that's where we are. And
I
so
understand that. I'm simply stating,
before I go for a grandiose plan, I want to make sure that the city can withstand it. And at this point, I don't think so. But I could be wrong. The shining light on the hill is Jerry Belinch's deal. And I really will be interested in seeing how that comes together and how quickly it is filled. I know that the upstairs will be filled right away. But the downstairs and people who want to take a shot at a business, and businesses are really tough. I don't know if you guys even know the statistics. To get a business to last 10 years out of 100 businesses, 93 or 94 of them will fail. And maybe because of bad management or whatever, but that's a hard fact. So when you build something and you suspect that this is all going to be, it isn't. It just isn't. And the COVID thing that just happened to us killed a whole bunch of really maybe pretty good businesses that'll never be back. And any number of things, farmers' crop goes bad or where and you can't afford to plant the next year. It's just the nature of the thing. As you look at J.C. Penney's, they're going to be gone pretty soon. I thought Macy's was going to go. And those are companies that have been around for years and years and years and years. Ward's is another. I mean, I could really go on, but what my whole point is, let's not overstep what this city could provide by its own strength, not what somebody thinks it ought to be able to do, even as much and attractive as that seems. And I can understand the public saying, oh yeah, I would love to see that. And I would too. And if I didn't know better, I would say, yeah, let's do that. But that's maybe not practical. So we need to come up with a plan that's practical. And that is not There we go, I think.
Or any other further discussion? Next thing I'll be looking for is a decision, a motion to approve.
Well, I think so. I think you have two options. You can debate some of the topics that have been brought up and make motions on those, whether they pass or not. Or you vote to deny or not accept anything, and then that's your recommendation to city council, or you make no recommendation, city council takes it on their own accord. So
That is a good point. I mean, there are some of these.
we are looking,
items
we do
that you've
need
spoken.
decisions on some of these.
There are some of the things that you just specifically spoken, I
Mhm.
believe unanimously in favor of, that you might want to capture that nuance.
Are you talking about going through the addendum?
That would be one way to do it.
Yep.
Okay, so let's just start with the addendum, garage setback in R1s and R3s. It is removing the 5-foot setback from the front. Is
Yes,
that acceptable to
yeah, throw that out.
18-inch elevation requirement in the flex 1, flex 2?
Throw that out.
You have to let him finish, because
Oh,
there's a staff
sorry.
recommendation.
I'm sorry.
So it's flex 1 and flex 2 is the current proposal. And the downtown residential attached and detached ground floor elevation also has an 18-inch minimum above sidewalks. That's for the homes in the downtown area. So their staff recommendations was to keep the language as is. Is that acceptable? So flex 1 and flex 2 would be if it's residential downstairs, either on the back. It would have to be on the back, there'd be commercial in the front. In the back would have an 18-inch step to a ground floor residential
Why?
on flex 1, flex 2. That's what the code is asking for.
Yeah.
Do we
That's what the
accept
code
that?
is asking for. I do not accept that.
I don't either.
So what we teed up there in that recommendation, knowing that this was a topic that's been discussed, was policy 4.2 in the downtown master plan speaks very explicitly to that. And so a motion to ignore that is essentially a motion to
Change.
request that staff develop.
Can we set it aside for refinement? Is that an option for us?
I mean, I guess anything's an option for you at this point.
Either
Because
way, this is gonna go to the city council.
I understand,
So
yeah,
even if we try to even if we go refine it, we can do that at a later date. If we're to refine it. But this is all based on a recommendation that we're
Yeah,
making to.
But
the
it could
city
slip through your
council.
fingers, I think is the point there.
Yes,
But now would be a good time to state the position, because it could go to the council and not come back to you. Right, so the idea.
so the council has the power to pull this change out of the code. Out of what we're going to adopt, or they're going to adopt.
They can do essentially anything that you right now would recommend. They have the power to decide to do or not do.
They can change it. I recommend we do not require an 18-inch step. If somebody wants to go around that, they can build a ramp with cement of 18 inches, but I don't even understand why that is a recommendation.
Because people want to, the group wanted a quaint front, including a porch. And a
For
porch
residents,
requires,
if you imagine the downtown setting, you have zero, you have these setbacks, and your front porch is on, this is just the philosophy behind it. Your front porch, your doorstep is at the pedestrian level for a residence. There is a subtle but meaningful distinction when you elevate a residence system. And it's something you see in traditional neighborhoods.
I'm just
that
throwing
they
this out.
elevate.
I have been in Europe and I've done quite a lot of traveling, and you get into Italy and a few of those little quaint cities. Everything's on the same level. You walk into a restaurant, straight in, and if there's any outside seating, it's all level with the street.
and that is the same way in this. For commercial.
For commercial, it's ground floor. There's no 18-inch on.
Okay.
This is just
then-
residential.
Then why, then where are you putting it?
If it's a house
Yeah,
being built in the downtown area,
right.
the idea is that the house sits up a little bit higher than the sidewalk, so that it on the residence, so that it's deemed that it's not a commercial building.
It should be optional. If somebody wants to do it, they can.
And that's what we're asking for, is
Yes.
there,
It's
But
not a
this is-
requirement. It could be optional.
So maybe the motion is to remove, to not adopt this, and that's simply the motion and the recommendation and.
And a recommendation to revise, to provide some example revision of the policy, because the policy is, we're gonna have a.
Right,
to get
because you gotta
policy.
make it work, and I can't find the 4.2.
So someone could propose a motion addressing this topic, vote, see how it lands.
so do we have a motion then to,
Propose the revision of,
For this specific
for
topic.
this specific topic for the. I don't even know where it is in the plan, because it's not referenced here. Oh, wait, there's 4.2. So would it be 4.2? Or is it's developmental code?
So I think the development code motion would be to remove the 18-inch requirement
Oh, to remove the 18-inch
in
requirement.
the code, and to enable that, revise policy 4.2 in the downtown master plan to not explicitly require 18 inches.
Excellent, that's what I mean.
So moved.
So moved.
okay,
I want to write this, I want to write this down.
We need to keep track of this, so
Yeah.
it's gonna take some time to write this.
Thanks, Lynn.
here, I'm gonna give you time, but I do have a motion, is there a second for that motion?
I'll second it.
I want that motion to be restated, please.
Okay, so the motion that I forwarded that was so moved was a motion to remove the 18-inch requirement for flex one, or just in downtown.
Yeah, it's
Remove the 18-inch requirement in downtown zones, in proposed downtown zone. And remove the 18-inch reference in policy 4.2 of the downtown master plan to enable that. I heard just that you can do it.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah,
Does that match what you,
yes,
so.
okay,
and that
There's
matches what you
second
said.
and that matches what you second?
Yeah.
Okay, any further discussion on this? Okay, all those in favor,
Aye.
All right.
any opposed? Okay, motion carried.
Did you want the motion on that other one?
Oh.
The yes on?
The
Garage
setback.
Yeah, let's be clear on that one. Let's make a motion for the garage setback as well.
So the garage setback in the R1 and R3 zones, the current code, or the current way it was written was 10 feet with a 5-foot setback from that.
Mhm.
And the new revision is to remove that so that everything is 10 feet.
I move that we accept the staff's recommendation regarding garage setback in R1 and R3 zones to be revised to 10 feet and remove the language after 10 feet for both R1 and R3.
Okay, and a motion?
I
I'll
think,
make that
staff's
motion.
recommendation is a clean way to do it.
Yeah.
Can we just do
Yeah,
staff
Yeah,
recommendation?
if you just reference that recommendation, we can.
Regarding garage
On
setback.
garage,
On the garage, yep.
Setback for R1 and R3.
So I have a first and a second, any further discussion? All those in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Lana, how are you voting on these?
Yeah, because
Are you voting or something? I wasn't voting because we don't have a split.
You need to be voting on this.
we don't have a quorum.
You do have a quorum.
I mean, but
So the garage setback, it'd be yes or no, and the 18-inch, I would say no. Okay. And only because, once again, I'm listening to what the people who are asking. Facade transparency, flex 1, flex 2. The current proposal, the issues that were brought up is flex 1 and flex 2 in regards to 75% of the facade area minimum. Staff recommendation is to keep it the same. If not to adjust it.
So one thing to consider here, I don't want to muddy waters, but we're getting into a point where it might feel like we're forcing. You could have a motion that is. What I'm hearing from Commissioner George is denial.
Yeah.
That's essentially what I'm hearing. There could be a nuance that you could add, which is if council proceeds.
Say that, start again, I'm a little.
So it could be hard denial, done. Or you could say if council determines to approve, you could add your nuance here. You could express your opinion. If council says, we're gonna proceed, we're not doing a hard denial on all this potentially, then you might want your nuanced position on certain topics to be preserved as opposed to the hard no, or the hard no becomes. Does that make sense?
On which topic? I didn't catch
Well,
the
that's
first
kind of what
part.
I'm getting at is, what I'm hearing from you is a no.
On the glass.
An umbrella
Like everything.
statement of no.
Yes, yes,
And so what would happen then is if the council decided to move forward, the nuance of your opinions sort of gets lost because you just said no. If however, you wanted to somehow convey a perspective on these key topics, you might want to
And
take
the-
advantage
the
of your
two
opportunity
topics
to do
that
that.
you're talking about are,
So one of them, the one we were talking about is facade transparency. That was the one where we talked about how much of the visual, we talked about a proportion. Right now it's 75% transparent, 40%.
as far as window sizes are concerned,
How much window space across the front?
that has to be up to the developer in my mind. Because you're talking huge amounts of money being spent in this particular ways, for strength and durability and.
So I
cross
think
members and
that would be
whole
an
nine yards.
area where you essentially are in denial. Your recommendation is denial. There's not really a nuance to share.
Yeah,
It's just-
I think it needs to be a decision by the developer that the city accepts. If we can get a developer that is interested in building there. And what the city has going forward is they own the property and they're willing to sell it to a developer.
We don't own all that property.
Then,
On the park side, yes, but like Jerry's side, no.
no, not Jerry's size.
So,
He's fine. We're not voting on that one. That's already done.
no, but he still has to, moving forward, he would still have to meet the new code. In any of his new buildings, because he's only got one,
Mhm.
so his next building, he's gonna have to meet downtown.
I'm not sure. If he's gonna build more buildings,
His plan is 4,
okay.
so the next buildings, he would have to meet the new downtown code.
No, I don't think so.
And that's what he was getting at, so
Okay.
I think what he's getting at is. Even if you said, I think a 40% would be appropriate, or 60%. I think that's what he was getting at, is that you can make a recommendation. Of what it is, as opposed to just a hard no. If you
Okay.
think,
I-
if
I-
you think that a 60% is doable, then put that out there as that.
And that's what he's already suggesting, 60%.
Yeah, so like
Yeah.
Zoe said, you know,
So,
she did the numbers and it is.
So I would agree with
60%,
that.
So that can be a revision that. the plan
That would be a
commission
revision to
recommends.
this particular one, to change it from 75% to a 60%.
I would do that.
So make a motion.
So,
I make that motion.
so the motion is to reduce flex 1, flex 2 from a 75% to a 60%. Facade area minimum on the ground floors.
That's correct. That's correct.
Is that what you're,
Yes.
okay? I have a motion, do I have a second?
Yes, a second.
Let your,
So I have. Reduce flex 1 and flex 2 facade area minimum from 75% to 60% on ground floor. Is that correct?
That's correct.
okay, any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Next one would be under carports. Current proposed language, carports not considered garage, staff recommendation is up to decide. Staff provided the item for discussion because the planning commission commented that the carport is not considered garage, there's no limit to the size. See what this is. We may restrict the size of carport if you desire. The planning commission can put specific limitations or can direct staff to generally prepare proposed adjustment to the city council. It was further stated in here that due to setbacks and things like that, the carports are still going to be limited in size. So looking for a motion to accept the carports for.
And I want to add one thing to this topic. This is for the cottage clusters where this would occur. So it's not like it would be citywide. This is only in the cottage clusters.
Only in the cottage cluster statement. So as it sits right now, we allow the carports, there's no dimension changes. We can accept that, we can revise that, or deny that, only in regards to the cottage cluster area. Only part of the code that
My recommendation is that we keep it as is. The planning, because it is going to be regulated based on coverage of the property. And if this code is specifically in here for cottage cluster development only,
It's gonna be small anyway.
it's gonna be small anyway. So there's no reason for us to make
So the motion is to accept the two staff.
recommendation.
To keep language as is.
Oh, keep language
Keep
as
language
it.
as is. So I have a first on that. And a second. The carports will stay as is. All those in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. This next one is on city-owned parcel. This is the area that the city that they're planning to sell off. It is currently zoned as a PL. This is map tax lot 19-01-14-24-44500.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to weigh in on this if I may.
Sure.
I would request a consideration of either a R1 single family residential, R3 multifamily, or flex 2. The reason being, I would like to encourage residential development on this property, and with flex 1, that would require ground floor residential, which would eliminate a possibility of a home being built on there. So R1, R3, or flex 2.
If I may clarify, what maybe you meant to say is the DRD, the downtown residential detached, is gonna be a traditional home. Because this is within the regular plan, there's no R1, R3.
So it'd be the DRA or DRD.
Yeah.
Would you, is there a way to bring up this lot without the boxes in our map?
Okay.
How big is this lot?
Yeah, I think it says it.
0.26 acre.
There's a way we can bring up where that, just a picture of that area without the informational box in it.
It's this parcel right here.
My recommendation would be to rezone that as a DRA, DRD, since it is facing Highland. That would make it a residential in that same area, but it's inside the downtown, it needs to be either DRA / DRD.
If you're looking for residential, you want.
Bring that back up again. I got another question. What is the south of that lot? There's a line there. Who owns that?
This,
Yeah,
the city owns this. This is a separate piece of property, but the city owns it.
And
Where that
Henry, you
big
said
ditch is.
DRA and DRD are still.
Yeah, they're residential, it could be any sort of.
Downtown residential attached or downtown residential attached. for the garage.
And why not just a single family?
It's in the downtown, so it's a DR.
Well, no,
It's
it
a
could, it
downtown
could be, it would just have. Form to the residential sign standards. So they could be.
Yeah, how is it in our downtown?
It was part of the city-owned property that was.
Added to the
Yeah, it got
downtown.
partitioned
It
off.
was, when the Kingdom Hall was purchased, it was right when we were doing all that, and it just came in as a long.
So-
that public land.
We can make it an R1, R3.
No,
So it has to be a DRA or DRD if it's gonna be residential, straight residential, not flex.
Correct.
Because it's already included in the.
Correct.
Okay, I understand.
So flex would be,
I mean, flex allows for those uses, residential and commercial as well.
I
Flex
would
to-
hate for it to be commercial, it is in a residential neighborhood. And it's facing the residential, it's got residential across the street, next door,
so my motion is to rezone it DRA or DRD.
I'll second.
But you gotta pick one.
Pick one, yeah, pick one.
Oh,
So,
We didn't front that to council, but they probably appreciate it.
so DRA and DRD is just strictly when it comes to a detached garage.
No.
Attached garage.
From what you're saying, DRD probably sounds like.
Yes,
the right.
a DRA is like could be like a townhouse, could be like 2 units.
Got it. So the
Attached,
DRD
shared wall.
or single residential.
okay. I'll second that motion.
So motion to rezone city-owned property to a DRD. That is, you need map tax on that,
No, it,
stated or not.
No, I think we got it.
we got it, yeah, we got it.
So first and second, any further discussion on it? All those in favor state aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Next one is on the school-owned parcel. It is tag lots 05400 and 05300. These two parcels are located on East Main Street and fall within the regulated plan. Currently, these are in flex 1. And the question is that it's a school district that is rezoned to PLD.
I'll move approval of rezone.
So I have a motion to
I'm
rezone.
trying to look at it here.
Sorry,
It's the school district property that we purchased.
it's
It's
the
right
one that's
here.
right next door to the coffee shop.
Right there.
That one there,
No,
that one. and-
Yeah.
this one and this one. Right, it's a
That
school
one over
district
here
owned
and that
property.
one there.
Yeah.
And that's school property there or? going
All
to
this
be?
dark blue is school district property. There's a home here that belongs to a resident, and there's a home here that belongs to a resident. But the rest of it is all district land.
And what we're doing is changing that zoning, so.
No, it's
Did you
already,
check the
on
votes?
here, it's blue.
All of them passes.
In somewhere along the way, it didn't never get to blue.
We'll go
So
back
we
on
need to
the
change it to
on
blue,
the wording and get those totals.
right?
Yes,
Okay,
Is that anything that's incorrect?
so then I have a first and second,
yeah,
okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor state aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. Minimum lot size. So then we have 7,000 currently. It was originally brought to us at 45, we got adjusted to 55. Staff recommendation was to keep the minimum lot size for R1 and R3 as proposed at 55. Do I have a motion to approve, disapprove, or revise?
I'll make a motion to disapprove that and keep it at 7,000.
Okay,
I'll second.
have a first and a second. Any further discussion?
Well, you,
Yeah,
let me write this out before you go.
Yeah, well,
Minimum lot size is 55.
And keep existing minimum lot size for R1, R3. Is that right, Henry?
yes, yeah,
R1, R3, 7,000.
sorry.
Square feet or more.
Well-
We can make it any lot, that's the minimum lot size.
That's correct. That's
Yeah,
what
that's right.
currently
Okay.
announced.
All right,
Okay, any further discussion?
I made the motion.
She seconded.
Any second?
Your second?
We're good. He's gonna call for the vote.
Okay.
No further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Um,
So the next thing would be the recommendation to city council. So if you want to scroll back down for me real quick. Can you hear me? I'm sorry, that's the top of the page that you're writing on.
So if I may, the idea that what we just went through, take or leave this, is one way to think about that is that you just made some conditional motions. Meaning if the council determines to continue to pursue, right, if you were to say, our motion, our sort of primary motion is to, you know, to deny the proposal in some. And the council says, okay, well, in this scenario, we're not gonna do that. If you didn't have these motions in place, then it would just be like, I guess we're left with our own assessment now. So you can have kind of a primary as a group motion, and then a sort of contingent set of motions that say, if you do proceed, we do want you to know how we feel about these 5, 6, however many more topics you want to declare.
What I would like to make the motion that we bring this thing current to what our latest census is telling us about the growth of our community and what's really going on in our community, so we can then take a better look at changing some of this code as needed.
Is there a second?
I'm not saying that it doesn't have to, we have to live by this. We need to really take a hard look at what's in there that just isn't working right now.
So what is your motion?
That the council lets us take a longer look and bring the censuses, the last two census, the last census was in 2000, right? That this whole thing is based on. But we've had 2 censuses since then that we can bring numbers off of to bring this current as to what is actually going on in Lowell. I remember years looking at the sign down there that said there was 953 people in Lowell. And I know there was more than that even when I moved here. But that was what was going on then, and I don't know if that sign's still there or not. I don't look. I guess somebody took it down.
2010.
So your motion then is to
Bring the code,
bring,
the code current to take a hard look at what's going on with this, the most current census. And for instance, in the school report,
I understand, I'm just trying to clarify what the motion
Okay.
is, so we can have it on the
Well,
table.
what I have here, Mr. Chairman, and I'll read this. From what I got is motion to bring the code current based on the last 2 census numbers to bring this current to what's actually going on in Lowell.
Is it the code or the plan?
The
You
comp
talk a
plan.
lot about the comp plan at
Yeah.
work sessions.
Okay, so we have a motion, do I have a second?
I wasn't expecting that at all. So, so based on his motion, I just have a question.
That's, we either have to
I
approve it
know.
first or deny it.
Yeah, clear the motion. Either
Um,
it's second or it's rejected.
we'll do some discussion.
I guess one nuance that we could add to this is that this isn't the scoped item, so this would be an unfunded. This would be City of Lowell, this is important, let's go in and look and do an additional research project to. They probably need a little more detail, but I think at that level, the concept is essentially census, the information in the comp plan has outdated content. Motion from the planning commission is to bring that content up to date with more current census information. Okay. Unless you want to hang more detail on that, it's essentially an independent project.
I don't second that. I'm gonna do it.
Okay, so this was defeated. One thing, guys, we had this downtown plan in front of us. We just came up with separate motions.
Yes,
We can make a recommendation to the council to follow our recommendations. And that could be a motion that we ask that they follow these recommendations. We can turn the whole thing down altogether. We can approve the whole thing altogether. With that motion that you're bringing up, I understand what you're getting at. I think that needs to be brought up as a separate project
I would agree.
from this, and we can still do that. I don't want to get it lost. I fully understand, and I agree with you that we need to do this. But I think what we need to deal with tonight is just what's in front of us first. Then we go for the rest of it afterwards and make sure that we follow through. So my motion would be to recommend to the council our votes and ask them to heed those thoughts.
So maybe what you're saying is your proposed motion would be scroll up. So approve the amendments, but for the revisions that were discussed.
I mean, what I heard from Commissioner George was denial.
Well,
And then we kind of forced your hand sort of on a couple of these things to say, okay, but denial, let's say the council decides to proceed. Do you want them to know your thoughts about some of these other details? And so there could be a council, planning commission's proposal is denial, and then you can add whatever narrative you want. We think that we should, and continue investigation, blah, blah, blah. In the case where council proceeds, commission submits the following perspective by motion on key topics.
Can I add something to that? Just to help him?
Mhm.
Bill. We've made amendments to this. And we need to get it done, because at this point, at this point, we can only address a few items in the code. So we're piecemealing it.
okay,
We need to close this chapter. And then we need to make a recommendation to the city council that we look at the code. Not just this portion, and this little bit over here, but all of it. And we can't do that until we finish this chapter.
okay.
Okay, so let's get through this. I think that we're clear with our recommendations, and then we can, as a body, decide how we want to proceed with it. But this is shot horn, and let's get it through. I mean, I think that what we've done is good.
So with the motions that we made earlier, do we have to make a motion of anything else to the city council
Well, then-
regarding the?
Yeah, these are just on specific policy issues. There's 100 different things in this code. So the question is, what Jake was saying, you can make a motion right now. I move to deny the development code updates, with the exception that if city council moves forward with consideration, that the city council take into consideration the following motions from the planning commission.
But wouldn't it be, I move that the city council accept the code updates with the modifications as recommended?
You can do
That's
that.
entirely the flip side of that, entirely possible, yep.
So you can recommend the rest of it that we didn't have a problem with, or we didn't
I don't,
have any issues with, or didn't bring them up, and say that except for these. And still recommend the approval, but they need to look at these, or you can deny the whole thing. And then ask them and say, this is what we want you to pay attention to. So it's either that would actually, is it actually a revision then? No, still either approval or denial.
so approve it with the qualifying recommendations.
Yep.
Or the revised.
And if you don't want to go that route, we have the magic words right here. These are the magic words.
Isn't that what you just did?
And if we don't go with that,
You could say we do not recommend approval, but we encourage city council to consider the following motions.
That's the entire downtown.
Or you could say, we're not prepared to make a recommendation tonight, but we encourage city council to further study following motions.
I don't know, I spilled myself here, I'm glad we did make the recommendations that we did tonight, so I agree to those. I would also like the council to understand that we really think we should continue to go on through this and bring it current. And however we can make that recommendation, so the city council knows what our position is, I think we should do that.
I think that we need to take care of this, and then the chair should maybe draft a letter on behalf of the planning commission to the city council saying that this is what we would like to see, with their blessing, that is something that we would
That's
like to
good
do.
enough for me.
I'd like to make a motion to recommend approval of ordinance 309 to the city council, adopting the text as amended to the Lowell Development Code and the Lowell Comprehensive Plan, based on the findings contained in Exhibit A and presented by staff in Exhibit D, E, and subject to the following revisions to the Lowell Development Code as discussed tonight by the Planning Commission.
And say as
And
referenced on
there we
the
go.
screen.
As referenced on the screen.
Perfect, as referenced on the screen. Thank you.
Okay.
Boy, was that long.
So I have a motion, do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a second, first and a second, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
I,
Aye. Any opposed?
One more, and probably two of those will probably fall under here.
So 310 is the rezoning?
Yeah, and the two that you need to be aware of is the school property and the city property, so just.
so this motion to rezone is specifically to the lot that the city has shaved off and the school district property. This has nothing to do with Moss, correct?
That's correct.
Amen, brother. Thank
Yes.
you. Okay.
But before we get to that, I believe we need to go to the second item on the agenda. So we're ready to close this item out and move on to the second one.
So the second one is to resume reconsideration of recommendation to the council proposed ordinance 310.
Correct.
An ordinance approving the rezoning of properties contained within the boundaries of the regulating plan. Adopting a new zoning and comprehensive plan map and a revised regulating plan map. So these are just the maps. That refer back to the downtown plan, the zoning as associated.
I have a question. All of these maps, zones are representing properties that have been sent notices that this is all gonna happen, and there wasn't one of them that came back to you and said,
Well, we had folks come to the meeting.
Yeah.
They came to the meeting.
They came to the open house, they were pretty aware of that, yeah.
then
We had an open house in here, then we talked about what it meant.
and all of the people that own these lots were here.
No, but all of them were
They
notified.
were notified duly.
We did have people come and have concerns, and they answered their questions, I think, very well, and I felt like they left satisfied with the answers.
It doesn't force anybody to change their current standing.
No,
I've had dealings with this very thing, and one or two property owners can really raise havoc with you, and I'm really surprised that you were able to pull this off, so.
And the downtown plan was all based off of these zoning maps. So what we're voting on is to add these maps
Mhm.
to our plan, to our comprehensive plan.
Well, another nuance to that is that those same properties were noticed when the master plan was. So a lot of the folks had.
If by voting to approve this means that the downtown plan is a go as far as the planning commission is concerned, then I am a no, because.
That's already done.
yeah, this is,
It's specifically to put the maps in the comprehensive plan.
Okay,
Yeah, so that was ordinance 309.
So do we,
So 310. And you read the same thing, but then I would say subject to the school owned parcels as discussed tonight be rezoned. Public lands downtown, and then the city owned property is recommended to be rezoned. do downtown residential detached.
Do we have a public hearing?
Yeah, you did. That was, it's all one hearing.
Don't.
These two
Oh.
are related.
Okay,
We just couldn't do this one until the other one was completed.
I make a motion to recommend approval of ordinance 310 to the city council approving the rezoning of properties within the boundaries of the regulating plan adoption of a new zoning and comp plan map and adoption of a revised regulating plan map based on the findings and facts as contained in Exhibit A and as presented by staff in Exhibit F and G, subject to the following revisions.
That's the
What we-
city property and the school.
Perfect.
So I have a motion, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
I have a first and a second, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor state aye.
Aye.
And opposed? 0. Motion carries. So. The other business then, what I'm hearing from Suzanne is that you feel I need to put a letter together as part of the commission, asking the city councilors to look at revising the entire comp plan project. It's going through a revision of the entire comp plan project
According to the modern information that we have.
with updated information. And so you guys are both stating you would like me to put that letter together.
Well,
Would that the city manager's job? To do those letters?
Well, this is because it's coming as a request from this body, and so it should be the head of this body to make that request.
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Sorry.
I believe this would carry more weight if there was a motion directing you
Oh,
A motion
to do that.
okay, so we have to amend the agenda?
Huh?
We have to amend the agenda.
Other business.
Other business, all right. I make a motion that that Chairman Drott draft a letter to the city council expressing this body's desire to have code revised to meet the most recent census information. Is that accurate? Mr. George?
mhm.
So I have a motion,
I'll make a motion.
got a motion,
I'll second it.
and our first and second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Other business tonight. That covered everything? Okay. Now look for adjournment from the council. We're adjourned at 7.